Okay, so Luis and Brian are roommates. Together, they have 197 books. If Luis has 37 books more than Brian, how many does Brian have? It's interesting. Okay. Write an algebraic equation that represents the situation. Use X for your variable. Okay. Use X for your variable. So together they have 197 books. Luis has 37 books more than Brian. How many does Brian have? How many does Brian have? Okay, so we've got to think about how to do these two situations. They want first for us to write the equation, and then they want us to figure out how many books Brian actually has. We're going to have to think about the relationship here between Luis and Brian in order to figure that out. Okay, so let's give that a try. So what are we going to do? We got to think carefully about that. So, what I'm going to suggest is to just write Luis and Brian. You don't have to do this, but I think this will make it easier. What does it say? Together they have 197 books. Luis has 37 books more than Brian. So if Brian is X, then Luis is X plus 37. Did that make sense right there, what I just did? Is that making sense? So Luis has 37 more than Brian. So I'm going to call Brian X. They told me to use X. Brian is X, and Luis is 37 more than Brian. So 37 plus X, or X plus 37, the order doesn't matter either way. Okay, and then we know that Luis plus Brian equals, meaning together, right? Them together 197 equals 197, doesn't it? Together, they add up together to equal 197. So then I grab the Luis formula right here, X plus 37 plus, and then the Brian formula right here, X equals 197. There's my equation. X plus 37 plus X equals 197. Does that make sense? There's my equation. X plus 37 plus X equals 197. Because again, Luis has 37 more than Brian. So if Brian is X, Luis is X plus 37, 37 more. And then those two together added, X plus 37 and X, is 197, right? Together they have 197. And now I need to solve that for X. So how do I solve for X? Well, first off, we're going to need to combine these guys. Now, how do you combine X and X? Well, it's really 1X and 1. Remember, if there's no number in front of X, there's really an invisible 1. Why? Because it's 1X. It's not 7X or something, right? It's 1X. 1X and 1X, what does that mean? 2X. Huh. We get to there. And now you know the name of the game. X is saying, I want to be alone. Get rid of all this stuff. Okay. So I'm going to subtract 37. We do the opposite of whatever's next to X to get X alone. Let me bring this down. 2X. What is this? 160. And then last step, how do we get X alone? X, and I want to be alone. This 2 is, I can't subtract 2. That 2 is not added to the X. It's right next to it. It's multiplied. So what's the opposite of multiply? Divide. Right? Whatever you do to one side, you have no choice but to do the exact same thing to the other. Why? Because if they were equal before and you treat them the same, they'll be equal afterwards. The 2's cancel on the left. 160 divided by 2 is 80. So X is 80. X is 80. And Brian is X, right? Remember, I wrote up there, Brian is X. So Brian has 80 books. Brian is X. Brian has 80 books. There we go.